So after a few months of using the Xiaomi Pad 7, which I reviewed in depth before, I decided to make a switch. And not just to any tablet, but to the new iPad 11th Gen. Now, this isn't about switching ecosystems for the sake of it. I made this switch for very specific reasons, and it has everything to do with how I actually use a tablet day to day, for watching videos, remote gaming, and doing light productivity work. The Xiaomi Pad 7 was one of the best affordable Android tablets I've used recently, and I honestly did not expect I would replace it this soon. But after trying the iPad 11th Gen, I realized there are some key differences that genuinely changed my experience. So let's talk about what I gained, what I missed, and whether the switch was actually worth it. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. I'm Renzo and I feature interesting or affordable tech gadgets on this channel, so do subscribe if you want to see more. Also, I've included exclusive links in the description box so you can check the latest prices and discounts for both the iPad 11th Gen and the Xiaomi Pad 7. Now, if you've seen my previous Xiaomi Pad 7 videos, you'll remember I had mostly positive things to say about it. It had that premium build, a high refresh display, solid performance, and MIUI's workstation mode that gave it some desktop flexibility. So why switch? Well, it mainly came down to consistency and daily reliability. The Pad 7 was great for content and gaming, but when it came to multitasking, app switching, and using it for productivity, I felt limited. The iPad 11th Gen fixes a lot of that, and surprisingly, it also offers a better typing experience, even without a keyboard. But let's start with the display, because that's where you'll immediately notice the difference. The Xiaomi Pad 7 has a slightly wider aspect ratio, which looks fantastic for watching videos. You get less letterboxing and more of that cinematic feel, and it just feels more immersive for entertainment. The iPad 11th Gen, on the other hand, has a taller aspect ratio, which isn't as ideal for videos, but it shines when it comes to productivity. That extra height gives you more room when stacking windows or reading documents, and it just feels more natural when you're doing actual work. In terms of sharpness and color, the Pad 7 looked more vibrant out of the box. When I first turned on the iPad, I was honestly underwhelmed. The colors felt dull and almost lifeless. Then I realized True Tone was turned on by default, which adjusts the color temperature based on your environment. Once I turned that off, the screen came to life. Suddenly, it looked just as good, if not better, than the Pad 7. The text was sharper, the details were cleaner, and it felt like a display that's more tuned for long-term comfort rather than just eye-catching color. That said, the Pad 7 does get brighter. Indoors, I often found myself cranking the iPad's brightness all the way up, especially when there's strong ambient lighting in the room. So if we summarize, the Pad 7, better for watching and gaming, more vibrant and brighter, and the iPad 11th Gen, sharper, more accurate, and better for reading and productivity. Both are excellent, but they serve different use cases really well. Now, software is where things get interesting. The Pad 7 runs MIUI for Pad, which has that workstation mode that tries to mimic a desktop setup. It's great in theory, multiple resizable windows, a taskbar, and easy app switching. Meanwhile, the iPad 11th Gen runs on iPadOS 26, which introduced Apple's updated Windows management system. And here's my take. Both are good, but neither is perfect. On the Pad 7, every time you open multiple apps, they default to a vertical layout. It's neat and easy to manage right away. On the iPad, every app starts in full screen mode. You have to manually resize it or drag it into split view. You only do it once per app, but it can feel tedious when setting things up initially. The trade-off? Once it's set up, iPadOS feels more flexible. You can freely resize windows however you want, while MIUI limits each window to certain sizes depending on the app. Another clear win for the iPad is RAM management. The base model handled up to 12 apps open simultaneously, including some heavy ones, and none of them closed in the background. The Pad 7, on the other hand, would start force closing apps after you open the fourth or fifth one. So while Android gives you more freedom, iPadOS feels more polished, predictable, and reliable. Now, this part really surprised me. I actually enjoy typing on the iPad's on-screen keyboard. Normally, I would always say, get a physical keyboard for serious typing, but with this iPad, I found myself writing entire scripts directly on glass. The spacing and the layout just feel balanced. I think the display size plays a big role here too, and on the Pad 7, typing never felt quite as natural. The keyboard layout felt cramped and I couldn't type for long sessions. at least when it comes to the on-screen keyboard. But of course, nothing beats a dedicated keyboard for typing. Now, instead of a keyboard attachment, I've been using these ESR magnetic case and their geomagnetic pen, both of which were sent to me for review. The case is a two-piece setup, one part is a slim back cover and the other is the magnetic stand. What's great is that the case has precise cutouts for the power button, which supports fingerprint unlock and tactile volume buttons, something the Pad 7 doesn't have. It connects magnetically to the stand and you can orient it vertically or horizontally, with 9 different viewing angles, 6 for watching and 3 for typing or writing. That flexibility means that I can comfortably switch between gaming, writing, and watching without needing to attach or detach anything bulky. As for the ESR geomagnetic pen, it charges via USB-C, not wirelessly, but it only takes 20 minutes for a full charge. You get Find My support, palm rejection, and around 12 hours of use per charge. While I had problems making tilt sensitivity work, the writing experience is still smooth and responsive enough for notes and sketches. There's a bit of a wobble when drawing lines, but if it's just for writing, it's perfectly fine. And there's also functions for a single press and double press on the button. I've linked both the case and pen in the description box below, so check them out for the latest prices and discounts if you're planning to buy. Now, this is where the two tablets start to separate. The Xiaomi Pad 7 is powered by the Snapdragon 7 Plus Gen 3, while the iPad 11 Gen uses the A16 Bionic. Both are fast, but the A16 is in a completely different class. It's significantly more powerful and more efficient, especially when you're multitasking, editing photos, or switching between resource-heavy apps. Day-to-day performance on both is smooth, but iPadOS optimization makes it feel more consistent. Animations are tighter, apps resume instantly, and you rarely run into hiccups. Yes, that's despite the difference in refresh rate, 60Hz versus 144Hz. Additionally, the chipset of the Pad 7, combined with the lack of 144Hz support for most games, makes the advantage of the Xiaomi Pad 7 a little less appealing in this case. Both tablets come with quad speakers, but the tuning is noticeably different. The Xiaomi Pad 7 setup is much louder, it can go up to 200% max volume, and it leans heavily toward a bass-rich sound profile. It's perfect for watching action movies or playing games where that punchy audio makes a big difference. Now the iPad 11 Gen, meanwhile, uses landscape stereo speakers. It's not as loud nor as bass-heavy as the Pad 7, but dialogues sound much cleaner. Voices are crisp, separation is clear, and it's generally more balanced. That said, in a side-by-side comparison, the iPad does sound a little teeny compared to the Pad 7, especially if you're used to that fuller cinematic sound. So for pure loudness and bass, the Pad 7 wins. For cleaner dialogue and clarity, the iPad 11 Gen takes it. Now, neither of the two comes with expandable storage, so you're stuck with the built-in memory. If you need to transfer files through USB-C, the Pad 7 is faster since it supports USB-C 3.2, while the iPad 11 Gen only uses USB-C 2.0. However, if you're already in Apple's ecosystem, AirDrop easily beats wired transfer speeds, at least for moving files between Apple devices. Both support HDMI out, but you're only getting display mirroring, and there's no dedicated desktop mode for either of them. As for connectivity stability, it's a bit of a toss-up. Sometimes the Pad 7 gets better Wi-Fi strength, and other times it's the other way around. But when it comes to Bluetooth, I've had no issues with either one, both stay stable and reliable even with multiple devices connected. The Xiaomi Pad 7 is a larger 8850 mAh battery, while the iPad 11 Gen packs around 7700 mAh. In real-world use, I get roughly 6 hours of screen on time on the iPad. That includes remote play, browsing, and mixed usage. But if you're mostly watching videos, you can stretch that to about 8 to 9 hours. The Pad 7 also performs well, but it's running a 144Hz refresh rate, so it naturally consumes more power, and the iPad 11 Gen, being limited to 60Hz, runs longer in most scenarios. And honestly, I don't mind the 60Hz refresh rate at all. For remote play gaming or general tablet use, it's smooth enough for me. Sure, Pro Motion or 120Hz would be nice, but it's not something I consider essential for how I use a tablet. Charging speeds also differ. The Pad 7 supports 33 watts fast charging and fully charges in about an hour and a half. The iPad 11 Gen includes a 20-watt charger, and it takes close to 2 hours to fill up. But here's where Apple pulls ahead: standby time. If you're someone who doesn't use a tablet heavily, you will love how the iPad can sit idle for days and barely lose any battery. That's something Android tablets, including the Pad 7, still struggle to match. Now, after switching from the Xiaomi Pad 7 to the iPad 11 Gen, do I regret it? Well, not at all. Both tablets are excellent in their own ways, but for my workflow and daily routine, the iPad 11 Gen just fits better. The taller display is more practical for multitasking, the typing experience is miles better, and iPadOS feels more consistent when juggling apps. While I do a lot of remote play gaming, ever since I discovered Apollo Artemis, I'm able to play my PC games on a full screen regardless of the resolution or aspect ratio. The ESR accessories also complete the setup, giving me flexibility without adding bulk. But that said, I still think the Xiaomi Pad 7 is unbeatable for entertainment value. Its display, brightness, and loud bass-heavy speakers make it an incredible device for watching movies or gaming. And with MIUI's workstation mode, it still delivers solid productivity features for its price. So if your priority is entertainment and affordability, stick with the Pad 7. But if you want a more reliable, productivity-focused tablet that you can type, write, and create on, the iPad 11 Gen is absolutely worth the upgrade. So that's it for this one. Drop a sub or like if you feel like supporting the channel. As always, till the next one, stay safe.